Throughout human history, the sea has always been a stage for ambition. Nations rose and fell on the strength of their fleets. Merchants crossed oceans in pursuit of wealth, and explorers sought unknown shores beyond the horizon. But among the countless vessels that have sailed across the waves, a special category has always stirred awe and admiration: the fastest ships. Speed at sea was more than a number. It was the difference between victory and defeat, survival and ruin. A faster warship could strike first or retreat safely. A swift merchant vessel could bring goods to market ahead of rivals. For sailors, the thrill of speed carried with it both pride and danger, for the fastest ships often pushed technology, seamanship, and human courage to their limits. From the lean, wind-driven clippers of the 19th century to the sleek destroyers and racing hydrofoils of the 20th, speed at sea has always symbolized progress. It revealed the ingenuity of designers, the daring of captains, and the restless spirit of nations that competed on the world's oceans. This is the story of the fastest ships in history. It begins in an age of canvas and wood, when graceful clippers carried tea and gold across stormy oceans. It follows into the industrial era, when steam and steel created ships that shattered old records. And it leads into the modern age, when naval engineers built sleek vessels that seemed to fly across the water's surface. Historical context. In the early centuries of seafaring, speed was often a matter of survival rather than engineering brilliance. Ancient triremes of Greece and Rome, propelled by ranks of oarsmen, could reach bursts of speed sufficient for ramming enemy ships. Viking longships, narrow and light, rode the waves with swiftness that allowed Norse raiders to strike far across Europe. But for much of the Middle Ages, speed at sea was sacrificed for cargo space and durability. The great age of sail in the 16th and 17th centuries changed that balance. European empires sought ships capable of reaching distant colonies and trading ports with precious cargoes. Galleons and frigates combined firepower with long-range endurance, yet even they were often slow and unwieldy. It was not until the 19th century, with the rise of global trade and industrial rivalry, that speed at sea became an obsession. Tea clippers, racing from China to London, carried fortunes in their holds. The ship that arrived first could command higher prices for its cargo. The stakes were so high that merchants invested in vessels built purely for speed, their hulls sharpened, their sails towering, their crews pushing every limit. The rivalry of the clipper age soon gave way to the Industrial Revolution at sea. Steam engines freed ships from the tyranny of the wind, and suddenly speed could be measured, controlled, and increased with the turn of a piston. Naval powers embraced this transformation eagerly. By the late 19th century, battleships and cruisers were being designed not only for firepower and armor, but for speed as well. A faster warship could dictate the terms of battle, choosing when to engage and when to escape. By the 20th century, speed was no longer a luxury, it was a necessity. Destroyers raced across oceans at more than 30 knots. Torpedo boats skimmed the waves like predators. Later, experimental hydrofoils and catamarans pushed speed into realms once thought impossible, gliding over the water's surface like aircraft waiting to take flight. And so, across centuries and technologies, one thread remained constant: the human drive to go faster, to conquer not only the sea, but time itself. The Age of Clippers. The pursuit of speed truly came alive with the great clipper ships of the 19th century. Built for trade, especially the transport of tea, silk, and other precious cargoes, clippers were long, narrow, and carried vast expanses of sail. Their hulls were sharp and streamlined, their masts tall, and their rigging intricate. Unlike the bulky merchant ships of earlier centuries, clippers sacrificed some cargo capacity for swiftness. The Cutty Sark, launched in 1869, became one of the most famous of these vessels. Built in Scotland, her sleek design allowed her to slice through waves at speeds of up to 17 knots, remarkable for a sailing ship of her size. She and her rivals turned voyages into races, with newspapers in London reporting which ship would deliver the first cargo of the season. For a few decades, clippers represented the pinnacle of naval architecture. Wooden vessels designed almost like arrows, harnessing every breath of wind for speed. But the reign of the clippers was brief. Steam power was advancing rapidly, and by the late 19th century, ships driven by coal-fired engines began to outpace even the fastest clippers. Where clippers depended on the wind, steamships could maintain speed regardless of weather, revolutionizing travel and commerce. The steam age and ocean greyhounds. The transition to steam brought a new generation of ocean greyhounds, passenger liners built to cross the Atlantic at unprecedented speeds. Rival companies in Britain, Germany, and later the United States competed for the coveted Blue Riband, awarded to the fastest transatlantic crossing. In 1907, Cunard's RMS Lusitania set records with an average speed of 25 knots, covering the Atlantic in less than 5 days. Her sister ship, RMS Mauretania, would hold the speed record for more than 2 decades, maintaining an average speed of nearly 27 knots. These great liners were engineering marvels of their day, powered by turbine engines that turned vast propellers with relentless energy. As speed increased, so did size and luxury. Passengers could now cross oceans, not only swiftly but in comfort, dining in ornate halls and strolling on wide decks while the ship sliced across the waves at speeds once unimaginable. The pursuit of speed was no longer limited to war or trade. It had become a matter of national prestige. Naval innovation, fast cruisers and battle cruisers. While merchant navies raced for commercial advantage, the world's military powers were equally obsessed with speed. In the early 20th century, Britain's Royal Navy pioneered the concept of the battlecruiser, a ship with the heavy guns of a battleship but the speed of a cruiser. HMS Invincible, launched in 1907, embodied this design philosophy. She could reach 25 knots, fast enough to chase down enemy cruisers and outrun more heavily armored battleships. The battlecruiser concept spread quickly, with Germany and Japan building their own versions. These ships were not as heavily protected as battleships, but their speed and firepower made them fearsome opponents. They were, in many ways, the warships of the future, trading invulnerability for the ability to choose when and where to fight. By the eve of the First World War, the world's oceans had become a stage for both peace and war, with clippers fading into memory, liners dominating the seas, and battlecruisers representing the cutting edge of naval innovation. All were built around the same dream: to go faster, to master the waves not merely with strength, but with swiftness. The clippers, harnessing the wind. The clippers of the 19th century relied entirely on the wind, yet their design pushed the limits of what wooden sailing ships could achieve. Their hulls were long and narrow, reducing resistance through the water. Their bows cut sharp and clean, while their sterns tapered elegantly, allowing water to flow with minimal drag. Above deck, their towering mast carried vast spreads of canvas, square sails for power, fore and aft sails for maneuverability. A skilled crew could adjust the rigging in moments, capturing even the faintest breeze. When the wind was strong and steady, clippers could achieve sustained speeds of 16 to 17 knots, with bursts faster still. But their performance was fragile. Becalmed seas could halt them entirely. Storms could shred their sails, and only the finest seamanship kept them competitive. Theirs was speed dependent on nature's moods. The steam revolution, turbines and propellers. The arrival of steam engines changed everything. Instead of waiting on winds, a ship could move with steady, predictable power. Early steamships relied on paddle wheels, but these were inefficient in rough seas. By the mid-19th century, the screw propeller became the standard, translating rotary motion into thrust more effectively. The great leap came with the invention of the steam turbine. Charles Parsons's revolutionary design, first demonstrated in 1897, replaced clunky reciprocating engines with smooth, high-speed turbines. Turbines allowed ships to sustain higher revolutions, producing both more power and more reliability. Passenger liners like Mauretania and Lusitania used quadruple turbine engines to produce over 70,000 horsepower, propelling their enormous hulls across the Atlantic at nearly 27 knots. This was not just speed, but endurance, day after day of high-powered cruising regardless of weather. The battlecruisers, guns and speed. Combined in the naval world, speed became a weapon in itself. The early 20th century battlecruisers were designed with long, sleek hulls and powerful turbine plants that could push them above 25 knots, astonishing for heavily armed warships of their size. Their trade-off was armor. To keep displacement within limits, designers sacrificed heavy protection in favor of speed and firepower. A battlecruiser could chase down cruisers and retreat from battleships, but if caught in the wrong engagement, her lighter armor could prove fatal. The First World War would test this balance brutally at Jutland, where British battlecruisers demonstrated both their terrifying striking power and their vulnerability under fire. The interwar and World War II era, destroyers and fast battleships. Between the wars, naval architects pushed speed even further. Destroyers became the greyhounds of the sea, small but deadly ships designed to race ahead of fleets at speeds above 35 knots, launching torpedoes and evading counterattack. Their slim hulls and powerful engines made them agile and dangerous, though fragile. Meanwhile, battleships themselves grew faster. By the late 1930s, designs like the American Iowa class combined heavy firepower with speeds exceeding 32 knots. These ships represented the peak of the battleship era. Fast enough to escort carriers, powerful enough to challenge any opponent, and driven by massive steam plants producing more than 200,000 horsepower. Modern marvels, hydrofoils and beyond. After the Second World War, the rise of aircraft carriers shifted naval focus away from speed on the surface. Yet, technological innovation never ceased. Experimental hydrofoils, such as the U.S. Navy's USS Plainview in the 1960s, rode above the waves on wing-like foils, reducing drag dramatically. Such vessels could skim the water at over 40 knots, though they were expensive and complex to operate. Commercial ships also reached new heights. The American passenger liner SS United States, launched in 1952, still holds the Blue Riband record for fastest transatlantic crossing, sustaining an average of over 35 knots. Her secret lay in lightweight construction and immensely powerful steam turbines producing more than 240,000 horsepower. In the modern age, experimental vessels and military craft have pushed boundaries even further. Soviet hydrofoils and missile boats achieved 50 knots. Today, advanced catamarans and trimarans, built with lightweight composites and gas turbines, can slice across the ocean at astonishing speeds, serving as ferries, patrol ships, and special naval platforms. The pursuit of speed. From wind-filled sails to gas turbines, the quest for speed has always been a contest between drag and power, between design and endurance. Each generation of shipbuilders found new ways to shave seconds from voyages, to cross seas faster, to make speed itself a weapon, a prize, or a point of national pride. The clippers, racing across the seas. For the clipper ships of the 19th century, every voyage was a contest. The most famous were the tea races from China to London. Merchants and investors watched anxiously as rival ships left Chinese ports laden with the season's harvest. Whichever vessel arrived first in London could sell its cargo at the highest price, making fortunes for its owners. In 1866, one of the most dramatic of these races unfolded. The Taping and the Ariel, two of the fastest clippers afloat, left Fuzhou on the same day. After more than 3 months at sea, through storms and doldrums, the two ships arrived at the Thames estuary within hours of each other. The Taping docked first, winning the race by a margin so narrow that it entered maritime legend. Such contests were more than commercial. They were spectacles, covered in newspapers and celebrated in taverns, embodying the romance of speed under sail. The Calisarc, although launched too late to dominate the tea trade, made her reputation in the wool races from Australia. Year after year, she sped across oceans, her sleek hull carrying her faster than her rivals. Today, preserved as a museum in Greenwich, she remains a symbol of the clipper age and the glory of sailing speed. The ocean greyhounds, crossing the Atlantic. With steam power, the contest moved to the North Atlantic. The Blue Riband became the ultimate prize, a recognition for the fastest passenger liner to make the crossing between Europe and America. The public followed these races with excitement, each new record hailed as a triumph of technology and national pride. The Mauretania held the record for 22 years, carrying thousands of passengers in comfort while maintaining speeds of over 26 knots across the stormy Atlantic. Her long reign demonstrated not only engineering excellence but also reliability, the ability to maintain high speed day after day. In 1935, Germany's SS Bremen and SS Europa seized the title, symbols of a resurgent nation showcasing its industrial might. Later, in 1952, the American SS United States shattered all records, crossing in just 3 days, 10 hours, and 40 minutes. She was not merely a liner, but a technological marvel, built partly with military use in mind, capable of speeds rumored to exceed 40 knots in trials. Her record still stands today, an unbroken testament to mid-20th century naval engineering. Naval expeditions, speed as a weapon. While liners carried civilians in luxury, naval vessels used speed for survival and victory. In the First World War, British battlecruisers roamed the North Sea, their velocity allowing them to scout and strike ahead of the main fleet. Yet speed was not always salvation. At the Battle of Jutland in 1916, 3 British battlecruisers exploded under heavy fire, their lighter armor unable to withstand enemy shells despite their swiftness. In the Second World War, destroyers and fast battleships wrote new chapters in the story of speed. The Japanese Fubuki-class destroyers, capable of 38 knots, terrorized Allied navies in the early years with sudden night attacks. The U.S. Fletcher-class destroyers, nearly as swift, became the workhorses of the Pacific, darting in to launch torpedoes or rescue downed pilots. Even the great battleships demonstrated how speed had become central to naval power. The American Iowa-class, sleek and fast at 33 knots, could escort carriers and hunt enemy ships across vast distances. Meanwhile, German commerce raiders like the Scharnhorst and Gneisenau used their speed to disrupt Allied supply lines in the Atlantic, striking convoys and vanishing before slower battleships could catch them. Experimental and modern voyages. After the war, speed contests took on new forms. The hydrofoils of the 1960s, like the U.S. Navy's USS Plainview, glided above the waves, reaching speeds over 45 knots. Though they never became common warships, they demonstrated how radically speed could transform naval design. Civilian ferries, too, embraced speed. Modern catamarans now carry passengers at 50 knots across short sea routes, combining advanced lightweight materials with powerful gas turbines. These ships may not cross oceans, but in their sleek profiles one can still see the legacy of the clippers and the liners, a desire to reach the destination faster, to master the waves through velocity. The Great Tea Race of 1866. Few events capture the spirit of the clipper age more vividly than the Great Tea Race of 1866. That year, some of the finest ships in the world, Ariel, Taiping, and Serica among them, set sail from Fuzhou, China, laden with the new season's tea. The entire nation of Britain followed their progress, with newspapers publishing reports from passing vessels. After more than 14,000 miles, the Ariel and Taiping reached the English Channel on the very same tide. In the early morning mist of September 6th, Taiping slipped into the London docks a mere 20 minutes ahead of Ariel. It was a race decided not by months at sea, but by moments, a dramatic finish that turned the captains and ships into legends. The Blue Riband rivalry. The Atlantic liner races of the early 20th century carried the same competitive fire. The Mauretania's long hold on the Blue Riband gave Britain pride, but when Germany's Bremen claimed the record in 1929 with a dazzling crossing averaging nearly 28 knots, it was hailed as a national triumph. These competitions were more than engineering feats. They were political theatre, each record a signal of industrial strength. When the SS United States shattered all records in 1952, it was not just a victory for a ship, but for a nation at the height of post-war confidence. She remains the fastest ocean liner ever to cross the Atlantic, a record that endures to this day. The Battle of Jutland, 1916. In naval warfare, speed was often the difference between victory and annihilation. At Jutland, the British and German fleets clashed in the North Sea in the only full-scale battleship engagement of World War I. British battlecruisers, designed to be fast and hard-hitting, led the charge. Yet their lighter armor proved fatal. 3 of them, Indefatigable, Queen Mary, and Invincible, exploded under German fire. Their sacrifice revealed the peril of relying on speed alone in battle and the terrible price of vulnerability. The Bismarck Chase, 1941. Speed shaped one of World War II's most dramatic naval stories, the hunt for the German battleship Bismarck. At 30 knots, she was among the fastest capital ships afloat, able to outrun many pursuers. In May 1941, after sinking HMS Hood, she tried to escape into the Atlantic. For days, the Royal Navy scrambled to intercept her. Aircraft from HMS Ark Royal struck a decisive blow, crippling her steering with a torpedo. No longer able to use her speed to evade capture, Bismarck was cornered and sunk by the combined British fleet. Her story showed how speed could grant temporary freedom, but once lost, spelled doom. Leyte Gulf and the Last Stand of the Tin Can Sailors, 1944. In October 1944, speed became both weapon and salvation during the Battle of Samar, part of the massive Battle of Leyte Gulf. A small group of American escort carriers and destroyers, the so-called Tin Cans, found themselves facing the main Japanese fleet, including Yamato. Vastly outgunned, the American destroyers used their 35-knot speed to charge directly into the enemy line, laying smoke, launching torpedoes, and dodging massive shells. Their audacity confused the Japanese admiral into retreating. Here, speed gave fragile ships the ability to survive and even repel a far stronger enemy. The end of the battleship era. When Yamato embarked on her final mission in 1945, she was already a relic. Her speed, 27 knots, was respectable, but against swarms of American aircraft it meant little. Once crippled by torpedo strikes, her ability to maneuver was lost and she succumbed in a fiery explosion. Her fate marked not only the death of a ship, but the death of the battleship as the arbiter of naval supremacy. Modern speed records. In peacetime, speed records at sea remained symbols of pride. Hydrofoil ferries in Europe in the 1960s and 1970s dazzled passengers by flying above the water at 45 knots. In 1990, the high-speed catamaran hoverspeed Great Britain crossed the Atlantic in under 3 days, setting a new record for powered vessels. Today, futuristic trimarans and wave-piercing catamarans ferry people at incredible speeds, continuing the tradition of pushing limits. From the tea races of the clippers to the blazing death of Yamato, the pursuit of speed at sea has always carried a cultural weight far beyond the engineering of ships. Fast vessels captured the public imagination, becoming symbols of nations, inspirations for art, and stories retold across generations. The clippers live on as icons of a vanished age of sail. The Cutty Sark, preserved in Greenwich, London, draws visitors from around the world, standing as a silent witness to the romance of the great races. In her graceful lines, one can see the dreams of 19th century merchants and sailors, forever chasing the horizon. The ocean liners became floating palaces of progress. The Mauretania and Lusitania embodied Edwardian optimism, while the United States represented post-war American confidence. Their speed records were celebrated like Olympic medals, chronicled in newspapers, and remembered in family stories of crossings made in comfort and haste. Even now, retired liners appear in films, novels, and museum exhibits as monuments to a time when speed across the ocean was a measure of national pride. Naval ships, too, became part of cultural memory. The battlecruisers of Jutland, both their power and their loss, have been analyzed in histories, studied in war colleges, and dramatized in films. The Bismarck inspired songs, documentaries, and countless retellings of her desperate chase. And Yamato, in particular, transformed into something larger than life. In post-war Japan, she became a symbol of both tragedy and rebirth, inspiring literature and even science fiction. The anime space battleship Yamato reimagined her as a savior of humanity, sailing not on the seas but among the stars. The cultural impact of fast ships stretches even further. They have shaped language itself. Phrases like greyhounds of the sea or faster than the wind carry echoes of the ships that first embodied those ideas. Models of clippers and liners sit in living rooms and classrooms. Museums around the world celebrate their legacies, inviting us to marvel at the artistry and daring of those who built and sailed them. Conclusion: from wooden clippers racing for tea to steel giants chasing the horizon with turbine power. The story of fast ships is the story of human ambition. At every stage of history, speed at sea has been more than a technical achievement. It has been a symbol of who we are, what we value, and how far we are willing to push against nature's limits. For merchants, speed meant profit and glory. For nations, it meant prestige, dominance, and survival. For sailors, it meant both pride and peril, an honor to serve aboard the swiftest ships, but always with the knowledge that speed could not always shield them from fate. The age of sail has long passed. The liners that once raced across the Atlantic lie silent in ports or scrapyards. The battleships that once thundered with speed and firepower now rest as museum relics or wrecks beneath the sea. Yet the fascination with speed endures. Modern ferries, catamarans, and experimental craft continue to chase the dream, proving that the desire to move faster across the oceans is as timeless as the sea itself. When we look back across this history, we see not just ships, but reflections of ourselves. The Ariel and Taping racing home with tea, the Mauretania holding the Atlantic record for decades, the Bismarck fleeing across stormy seas, the Yamato sailing on her final doomed voyage. Each was a chapter in the great saga of speed at sea, each reminding us that the ocean has always been both a highway and a battlefield, a place where human skill meets nature's vastness. The ships may be gone, but their wakes remain in memory. And as long as people dream of horizons, the story of the fastest ships in history will continue to sail on endlessly like the waves,